Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever had one of those days that just felt absolutely endless? Or a totally restless night where the clock seemed to actually tick backward? Well, today we're diving into a really enchanting ancient fable. It reads kind of like a psychological thriller, but it actually acts as a profound survival guide for the grand, unpredictable journey of life. Let's jump right in. Okay, the ultimate map for the exciting and honestly sometimes dangerous journey we're about to explore is perfectly summed up in this profound thought. It goes like this: a night is long for the sleepless. A yojana, which is an ancient unit of distance, is long for the weary. And samsara, the cycle of life, is long for the fool who does not know the true Dhamma. I really want you to keep these three key concepts in your head: the sleepless night, the weary distance, and that long cycle of life, because they are the keys to unlocking this entire story. Let's start with part one, the poor man's deadly mission, a traveler forced onto a dangerous path. So our story kicks off with a poor man who gets forced on this totally impossible mission by King Pasenadi. Why? Because the king secretly desires the man's beautiful wife. He sends the poor man to fetch magical lotuses from the incredibly dangerous Naga realm before evening. We can literally trace his frantic race against time. He leaves his house completely panicking, with just a tiny bit of watery rice. But here's the amazing part. Instead of letting fear take over, look at what he does. Right at midday, he shares his very meager food with a fellow traveler. In the afternoon, he feeds whatever is left over to the river fish. And then, he loudly shares the merit of these good deeds with the local Nagas, those mythical serpent beings. And they are so touched by his incredible generosity that they actually grant him the impossible magical lotuses and clay. His sheer goodness literally smoothed right over his treacherous path. And he did it. He succeeded against all the odds. But then, he hits a terrifying roadblock. He rushes all the way back to the city, only to find out that the king, who absolutely intended to cheat him, ordered the city gates locked early, so the poor man is locked out. Certain that he's going to be executed the very next morning, our weary traveler is forced to sleep outside the city walls at a temple. It totally seems like a disaster, right? But as you'll see, this little detour is exactly what keeps him far away from the true danger, which actually brings us to our second traveler. Moving to part two, the king's long night, a psychological journey fueled by dangerous desire. Meanwhile, back in the luxurious palace, King Pasenadi is wide awake. His mind is just racing with guilt over the murder he's actively planning for the morning. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference between physical distance and psychological time. While the poor man's body is physically exhausted from walking a great distance, a yojana, his conscience is perfectly clear. But in stark contrast, the mental torment of the king's guilt and his burning desire makes a single sleepless night feel like an absolute eternity. He is completely trapped in a maze of his own making. That takes us to part three, the mystery cries from hell, terrifying monsters on the path. As the middle of the night approaches, the paranoid king suddenly hears these horrific, booming sounds echoing from the pitch-black dark. 2. Sa. Na. So. He is paralyzed with fear. He's absolutely convinced these are monsters, or maybe terrible omens of his own impending death. But the true origin of these agonizing cries is actually far more terrifying. They aren't monsters hiding under the bed. They are the fragmented screams of tormented souls. Specifically, beings trapped in the boiling Lohakumbhi hell, an enormous iron cauldron that is 60 yojanas deep. They're boiling and sinking so incredibly fast that they can only manage to scream a single syllable of their regret before plunging right back under the surface. Let's see how this all builds into a karmic map. Who exactly are these suffering souls? Well, the text explains they were 4 wealthy men from a past life. Instead of using their massive wealth for good, they chose a really dark path of reckless adultery and unchecked desire, which is exactly the path King Pasenadi is walking right now. Because they completely ruined their journey with dangerous desires, they are now sinking in this boiling hell for 60,000 years. So those sounds the king heard? They were a direct, terrifying warning of his own future. But the king doesn't know this yet. Panicking from the awful sounds, he consults his chief advisor, who's a Brahmin. Now, rather than offering actual wisdom, this foolish Brahmin guides the king onto a horrific detour. To save his own life from this perceived bad omen, the Brahmin tells the king he has to perform a massive blood sacrifice. We're talking 100 elephants, 100 horses, 100 cattle, and even 100 human men and women. Driven entirely by just blind fear, the king orders his men to immediately start capturing innocents. Part 4. Queen Malika's Wisdom. finding the true God in the dark.
Just as panic erupts all over the city and innocents are being rounded up for this slaughter, a real hero steps in, Queen Malika. She absolutely refuses to be intimidated by the king's fear or that Brahman's extremely foolish advice. Instead, she steps up as a wise, compassionate guide. She challenges the king with a simple but incredibly powerful question. Where have you ever seen someone gain life by taking the life of another? Basically, why sacrifice others to save yourself? It's this brilliant moment of pure clarity that cuts right through the king's panic. She points out that he's essentially throwing his own suffering right onto the shoulders of the innocent public.
Instead of relying on all that fear and superstition, Queen Malika literally takes him by the hands to the ultimate navigator, the Buddha, who happens to be residing at a nearby monastery. The Buddha calmly listens to the story of the king's terrifying night and then fully illuminates the true origin of his terror. He explains the whole story of the 4 men in the boiling hell, revealing that those sounds were their cries of regret and definitely not a threat to the king's life. Hearing this, the king is deeply moved. He repents his lustful plans on the spot and immediately puts a stop to the horrific sacrifice.
Which leads us to part 5, the map for life's journey, understanding karma to travel safely.
With the crisis completely averted and the innocent citizens freed, the Buddha provides what is essentially the ultimate map for life. He explains that life is a very long, arduous journey, but deeply understanding the laws of cause and effect, or karma, is exactly how we navigate it safely. So both of our travelers finally find real peace, uniquely understanding that opening quote we talked about earlier. The poor man speaks up, realizing the true, exhausting physical distance of a long road when you are weary. And the king? He realizes the agonizing psychological length of a sleepless, totally guilty night. Both of them finally understand just how incredibly long the journey becomes when you stray from the path of goodness.
So, what does this all mean for us? The absolutely crucial takeaway from this fable is that we need to pack these exact virtues into our own bags if we want to be excellent, happy travelers. Number 1, avoid causing harm to others just to save yourself. Number 2, continuously cultivate generosity, just like the poor man who shared his watery rice. Stay faithful and completely avoid those dangerous desires that trap the mind. And finally, always seek out real wisdom instead of acting on blind panic and fear. These are definitely the models we should all be practicing.
By packing these wonderful virtues, we ensure our own journey, no matter how long it gets, is filled with light, excitement, and peace. So ask yourself today, what kind of baggage are you carrying on your road right now? And is it making your journey way longer than it needs to be? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible explainer today. To conclude our journey exactly as this beautiful ancient tradition does, may you all be happy.